Morning, guys. It is day 3. It's just after 5 o'clock in the morning. I woke up and it seemed like it was gonna rain today. It's a little overcast, fairly windy. I jumped up, went out and stoked up the fire to at least heat up my breakfast and coffee water. And so far so good, but if it's gonna rain today, then I should probably at least get a start to the day while it's not raining. Get something done. Well, I'm not sure if you can hear that, but I was right about rain. Very glad that I got everything under shelter when I did. I was kind of thinking it's probably going to rain today. It almost definitely. I might as well get some fishing done, or I'm not eating today other than that soup. Well, after losing yet another line in the bottom of that river, I was redoing up my line. It started raining, so, well, I guess the best thing I can do for myself right now is to make myself a coffee and get that soup while it's hot, because if it really starts pouring, I'm not having a fire. And hopefully this will just blow over. We'll see. Alright, the rain is kind of starting to make its way through these trees here. I'm under, what are they, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 good sized white pine trees. And they do block some of the rain, but it's kind of starting to make it through. So, probably won't be filming too much today. I gotta get the camera under shelter of some kind, either my tarp or my tent, or probably the tent. Unfortunately, fishing in the rain just not really a thing. They don't really bite when it's pouring rain, at least not in my experience. So I guess all I have to eat today is my sort of rehydrated, once burnt fish soup and the world's worst coffee. Ugh. Last time I buy that stuff, holy jumpins'. That's what I get for cheaping out, right? All right. Ooh, that's really hot. Well, you can taste that it was burnt. And it's definitely not like Great Granddad used to make. But it's not all that bad. I've eaten worse meals. Some of my fondest memories of my great-granddad was being up at the cottage, eating fish soup, trying, as he's, pouring it into bowls or whatever, trying to tell my granddad, no eyeballs, please. And, oh geez, he'd probably put the 6 of them in there just as for spite or whatever. Man up and eat your eyeballs. And yeah, the eyeballs are in here, but being that it burnt and somewhat dried out, whatever, I don't think there's going to be much left of them now. But nope. No, I dried them out and they're gone. Sorry, great-granddad, but I am eating my eyeballs. It's around 11 o'clock in the morning, day 3. The rain might not have stopped for good, but at least for now it's stopped. Thought I'd come down here and fish a little bit, even though there's almost zero chance that I'm going to get anything. Being so close to midday, fishing here is usually an early morning or late evening kind of thing. But I kind of figured, hey, with the pouring rain, the fish didn't really get to eat. Maybe they just might be hungry enough that they'd be willing to nail anything. So I guess we'll see. I fell asleep for a while too. I just laying there listening to the rain hit my tent. I went out. As far as building anything goes, the whole forest is just drenched wet, so I don't feel like trudging through it to get building material. But I got my cold coffee because I fell asleep and didn't drink all my coffee. And I got my newly rigged up fishing pole here after losing them. I don't even know how many lures in the bottom of this river. still. Heads and tails better than a day at work. Cold coffee, fish aren't biting. Heads and tails better than a day at work. So day 3 with the rain, me not doing very much, very little excitement going on at all, nothing really film worthy. I decided maybe stretch it out a little bit by telling a kind of a funny story. A couple of years ago, I was out camping and there was probably like a dozen of us, give or take a few. And all the friends that I was with basically ranged from some that I had known probably less than a year to one friend that basically we've been friends for 25 years or more. So it's getting kind of late at night. We're all sitting around the campfire. We've all had some beer or some wine or some whiskey or, wobbly pop of choice, whichever it is. And the girl that I was dating at the time says, I have to go to the bathroom. Like, wow, I really have to go to the bathroom. And I said, well, be careful of the drop bears. Immediately, everybody freezes. Conversations stop. It's almost dead silence. Everybody's got a look on their face like, what? Except for the buddy of mine that's been a buddy of mine for 25 years or more. He immediately gets a grin on his face and he just sits back and doesn't say a word. He's just watching the show. So my at the time girlfriend says, drop bear. And I said, oh yeah. And she said, what the hell is a drop bear? I said, well, they're kind of like black bears, but they're smaller. They're a fair bit smaller. And she said, well, are they dangerous? I said, well, they're way more dangerous than a black bear. And she says, if it's smaller, how is it more dangerous than a black bear? And I said, well, it is a fair bit smaller, but they've got like great big canine teeth, and their claws, they're probably like 3-4 times the size of a black bear. And they're really, really strong. They're stronger than any old black bear ever. And what they do is they basically hang up in trees and they wait for you to walk down underneath them, and they drop down and they grab a hold of you and they just start biting and tearing and slashing until you're dead. And then they eat you and they go find a tree to climb. Well, everybody is kind of sort of mixes in, you know, like, wow, this guy's absolutely full of it, to I've never heard of that. What the hell is this guy talking about? And whoop, this one buddy of mine who he's never been camping, he's never been in the bush, he's never been in a boat, he's never done anything like that at all. An endearing term I call a cidiot. And this buddy of mine, well, he was partaking quite a lot of the devil's cabbage. So he's sitting there listening to this, just absolutely freaking out. Big wide eyes, can't believe what he's hearing. And before anybody even has a chance to say anything at all, and I'm talking about, these crazy drop bears and, blah, blah, blah. He stops, he says, whoa, wait a minute. You're just messing with us, right? I'm trying to freak out the girl that I was dating, and I get ganja head all hyped up and freaking out. I don't know. I told him I was just messing around, but I think I had him so freaked out about wild animals. He kept that bonfire just a roaring. He did not let that thing die down. He probably, with the fire that he had and the wood that we were using and just the intensity of it, he probably burnt close to a foot down into the rock. Like he actually turned the rock back into sand with the fire that he had going. So now, whenever my buddy Nick wanders off for any reason, we usually tell him, hey, watch out for the drop bears. Man, the look on his face is absolutely priceless. I wish I would have gotten that on camera. This little guy is like 10 feet out of my camp. Like, if the last time I was here, I had my tent set up pretty much right where he is because there was so many of us. Doesn't seem to be really doing much of anything, so I would guess that he's moving from the swamp to the river. Now these guys have a very, very nasty reputation because their bite is pretty bad. They have sort of a hook-like beak. And when they bite into you, you generally need stitches. Let's see if I can get in close and see if I can get you a shot of that beak. So you can more or less see how that little beak would just slice right into you. And that's why they have such a bad reputation. Which is very unfortunate because snapping turtles are notoriously shy. They don't like to be bothered, and they will generally move away. If they're in water, they definitely will move away. This guy here, the amount of distance he crawled, he's probably taken a rest because he's probably near to exhaustion dragging himself this far from the swamp that's in the bush back behind him. Now, I don't want to risk bothering him too much while he's probably as tired as he is. I also don't want to get too close because their necks are very long. Usually they keep it tucked in the way it is now, but they actually can reach out quite a distance and nail you. And they're lightning quick. Now this, for the type of challenge that I'm doing, this would be a real boon to see a snapping turtle in my camp like this. I could just basically get my hatchet, take its head off, and that would provide me with a lot of very good meat, a lot of calories in here. However, here in Ontario, the snapping turtle is now a protected species and we can't eat them. Which I guess is a good thing because their numbers have declined. Kind of a bad thing for me right now because there is a lot of meat on this guy. He has been eating well. He is a very plump snapping turtle. Time for me to get out of here and leave him alone so he can relax and finish his journey to the river. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's a lady slipper. I've never actually seen one of these things in real life before, and I don't really know that much about it. But I do know that it is Manitoba's provincial flower. I know that they do grow in Ontario, or at least I knew before confirming.
but I've never actually seen one of these things in real life before. Pretty cool.
Before coming out on this trip, I was having coffee with my buddy Nick, and we were talking about this trip and what my plans were, and well, all in all, he thought it was a little extreme to do this, but we were talking about some of the food sources out here that I'd probably take advantage of. And one of the things that I mentioned was squirrel. And I basically said that squirrel is nothing more than fuzzy-tailed tree bacon. Well, unfortunately, I haven't seen one black squirrel or one gray squirrel out here at all. Not one. I did hear a red squirrel, and I've heard it multiple times over the last couple of days. I don't know exactly where it is. It's somewhere near the camp, but it hasn't shown its face. So, not wanting to disappoint my buddy Nick, I basically did the next best thing. I got a chipmunk. Not exactly the meal that that you'd be looking for, but closest thing I could do, man, until we get to a place where there's a lot of black squirrel, gray squirrel. That's what I'm working with. So I am going to clean this guy up. I have a little bit of that fish soup left. I'm just going to add him to the rest of the fish soup because he's not much of a meal really at all. And I'm going to save the innards for fish bait. Use a bobber and just sort of sit back and relax rather than cast and reel all the time. So, as I mentioned before, YouTube does not like YouTubers showing the processing of game. So I'm going to do that off camera, and then I'm going to add them to the pot and get a fire going. It's coming along all right. Good. I think this dish needs cattail. I'm gonna go get some cattails. So I started cutting up the cattail into smaller pieces. And as an afterthought, I left some long to sort of simulate noodles. I don't know, just figured I'd do that. Chipmunk noodle soup. Better add a little more water to that. Don't want to burn it down again. There, so that's been cooking, oh, maybe 10 minutes of solid boil, and then maybe half an hour, 40 minutes. But just adding in the cattail, I'll give it at least another hour. Well, I was just sitting here tending the fire, waiting for food to cook, so on and so forth. Sitting here at my pellet gun. And I got something else for my soup pot. It's just a small wren. I actually thought it was a blackbird at first. I took a shot and I broke its wing. So it didn't quite come out of the tree. The next shot was a headshot, so it didn't suffer long. But we're going to add that to the pot. Alright. Got the little bird all cleaned up. I tried to pluck it to keep the skin on. The skin's so thin it just ripped right off. And inside there's 2 eggs. So I'm going to leave those in there. The heart is still in there. Everything else has been gutted out. Now this won't take very long to cook at all. Into the pot. For the record, this is the survival challenge, so you have to make do with what you can get. Now personally, I had this big pot because I was thinking I was going to be nailing squirrel and great big pike and just all kinds of wild edibles and whatnot, and there's really not that much out here compared to what I thought there should be. Now, nothing's in season right now. There's a lot of resources throughout the year, but it's all in flower right now. That being said, I normally wouldn't, just eat tiny little birds and little chipmunks if I could get, large blue jays, blackbirds, squirrel, kind of whatever. And I may get that red squirrel, I may not. I might get a bigger, a blackbird or a jay or, kind of whatever. But this is a survival show. This is, it's supposed to be sort of that down in the dirt, nitty-gritty survival. So I'm making do with whatever resource I can get while I'm doing this challenge. The idea is to maintain or gain weight. So I got to do what is necessary to put my best foot forward on this challenge and give it the old college try. I'm really not banging it out as much as I thought I would, though. The resources here, at least right now, are somewhat scarce. that was a meal well enjoyed. Dishes are done. My afternoon coffee. Nothing to do but laze the rest of the day away and fish. Oh. I'll either see you guys around bedtime, or if something interesting happens, I'll catch up with you guys then. Whew. Well, guys, it's the end of day 3. It's 8:26, and I'm calling it. I'm just calling it. I'm sitting there fishing, just at my spot, and the wind picks up. And I mean, it picked up with a vengeance. It was crazy. And I thought to myself, gee, I think it's gonna rain. And not 2 seconds later, downpour. Torrential downpour. Blew my camp apart. I had to take down my tarp and my hammock, because it was blowing so much I knew it was gonna get destroyed. My canoe blew away into the water and started going down the river and started capsizing and whatever with the paddle. But that's okay, I kind of needed a bath anyway. I kicked my boots off and I went in after it, and I got it. And I tied it to a tree. I somehow in the maelstrom managed to lose a sock. Not sure how. I had to pick up a bunch of stuff blown. My tent almost blew away. And I had like a fair bit of stuff in here. It still almost blew away. Crazy. It was that windy. It's really, really, really windy. The wind has kind of died down. The rain kind of hasn't. But, meh. That's springtime in Muskoka for you. Not much I can do. So, I'm just going to call it a day. I'm going to stay in the tent the rest of the night. I'm not doing nothing. I'll see you guys on day 4.